The door was heavy, frosted glass in the panel. You pushed it open and the smell hit you before anything else. Beer and cigarette smoke and something frying somewhere past the bar. The landlord had his back to you. The barmaid was already pulling. Somewhere between the door and the bar, you made your decision. The pork scratchings on the shelf or the jar on the counter. Maybe something from the card hanging behind the bar. Maybe you'd see what they had under the glass. 15 things that lived on, behind, or just inside the door of a British pub in the 1970s. Some disappeared quietly. Some are still there. Number 1 is in a jar, and nobody has quite replaced it since. Number 15. Bacon fries. Flat, thin, shaped roughly like a rasher. Made from corn, not bacon. The flavour was a beechwood smoke approximation that worked better than it had any right to. A Smith's product from the 1970s, sold in a small bag alongside scampi fries on the bar card or from the box behind the counter. They still exist. You can buy them. But the days of bacon fries as a standard pub presence, hanging on the card next to the KP nuts, available without asking, eaten standing at the bar, are over. At 15, because most people under 50 have never ordered one in a pub. The ones who have usually remember them immediately when you mention them. Number 14. Tudor crisps. If you grew up in Yorkshire, the North East, or parts of Wales, the crisp behind the bar was not necessarily Smith's or Golden Wonder. It was Tudor. Tudor had been a fixture of regional pub trade since the post-war years. Crunchier than Smith's. Slightly more substantial, loyal to its territory. Golden Wonder eventually acquired the company and Tudor was quietly discontinued. No national announcement because it had never been a national brand. It was a local one. The people who remember Tudor remember it specifically. The bag, the texture, the fact that it was the crisp in your pub, in your town. They remember which pub they were in the last time they saw the bag. Regional crisps occupied a layer of British pub culture that the national brands absorbed and then deleted. There was no replacement. There wasn't meant to be one. Number 13. The sausage roll under cellophane, cold, wrapped in cling film and sitting at the end of the bar. The pastry had softened slightly by the time you bought it. Nobody asked when it was made. You made the calculation, a pint or two in, slightly hungry, and you bought it anyway. No heating. No microwave. It was whatever temperature the room was, which in a British pub in January was not far from cold. The sausage roll under cling film occupied a specific category of pub food that no longer exists. The thing that was there in case you needed something. Not as a considered menu offering. The gastropub killed it by having actual food. The microwave killed it slightly earlier by offering the illusion of warmth. Number 12. Gala pie. When you cut into it, the egg was there. Pale yolk surrounded by white, surrounded by pork, surrounded by pastry. Under the glass cloche on the bar. Room temperature. No announcement required. Gala pie came from the pork pie tradition of the Midlands, Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire particularly, and drifted into the bar snack repertoire sometime in the post-war years. A pork pie with a hard-boiled egg running through the centre. Slightly more impressive to look at than everything else under the dome and cold in exactly the same way as all of it. The dome is gone. The gala pie went with it. Number 11. Scampi fries. If someone at the bar opened a bag, the whole pub knew about it within 30 seconds. Scampi fries had a flavour. Seafood adjacent, sharp, synthetic, unmistakable, that announced itself across a room. A Smith's product. Flat, prawn-shaped pieces of corn snack in a net-style bag. The netting was the packaging, not a decoration. They still exist. You can find them. The scampi fries of the 1970s pub bar were not a product you sought out in a supermarket aisle. They were part of the architecture of the bar itself, hanging on the card alongside bacon fries and the nuts, ordered by pointing rather than searching. The flavour is the same. The context is not. 10. The free bowl on the bar. Twiglets most often, sometimes crisps, occasionally salted peanuts. Put out in a bowl at the bar counter at no charge for anyone standing close enough to reach. The practice was common enough in the 1970s that you expected it, or at least you looked. If there was a bowl, you took from it. You did not ask. It was simply there the way the ashtray was there and the beer mats were there. The reasons it disappeared are not complicated. Hygiene regulations. From wet-led pubs to food-led ones, where snacks were on a menu and had a price. A bowl of Twiglets sitting out on the counter does not fit the model of a pub with a kitchen. It was something for nothing. Those don't last. Number 9. The KP Nuts card, a rectangular card hanging behind the bar. On it, small bags of KP peanuts arranged in rows, attached by a strip. You pointed at the bag you wanted, or you said, "peanuts," and the barman reached back and pulled one from the card. The card carried a graphic, a silhouette of a woman, a promotional device that ran for decades and has since become its own piece of nostalgic imagery for anyone who spent time staring across a pub bar in the 1970s. KP had been selling packaged peanuts since the early 1950s. By the 1970s, the hanging card was the standard delivery system for them. It was replaced by a box on the bar, then a shelf, then the crisp rack near the entrance that nobody passes on the way to the bar anyway. The card is gone. The peanuts are still there, somewhere. And more on this list, including the man who came into the pub on Friday nights without anyone hiring him, the crisp format that thousands of people still search for online, and the one that's been in a jar since before you were born. Hit subscribe. New film every week. Number 8. KP Dry Roasted Peanuts. The smell arrived before the bag was open. KP Dry Roasted Peanuts, launched in 1977, had a coating of spiced, slightly sweet, very dry powder over the peanut. Not salted nuts. The texture was different. The smell was different. By the late 1970s, that smell had become so associated with the British pub that the two things were essentially inseparable. KP's dry roasted peanuts dominated the pub nut market so completely through the 1980s that ordering peanuts in a pub almost automatically meant dry roasted. The salted alternative existed. It was considered the less interesting option. They are still made. The pub culture that surrounded them, the deliberate choice between salted and dry roasted, the smell arriving at your end of the bar before the bag was even open, is not quite what it was. Number 7. Smith's Crisps with the blue salt sachet. Inside the bag, a small blue twist of paper containing salt. You opened the bag, found the sachet, tore it, shook the contents in, sealed the top, and shook. The salt distribution was entirely your responsibility. This could control at a time when crisps came in one flavour, and that flavour was plain. The ritual, fishing for the sachet, deciding whether to use all the salt or hold some back, was something you did automatically, the way you do anything learned before you were 10 years old. Smith's Crisps was founded by Frank Smith in Cricklewood in 1920. The blue sachet began in the 1930s. By the 1970s, Smith supplied nearly every pub in the country. Pre-seasoned crisps made the sachet redundant. Smith's was absorbed by Walker's. The format is gone. The question, what were those crisps with the blue bag of salt, is still searched thousands of times a month. People know what they're looking for. They just can't find it. Number 6. The Cockles Man. He arrived on Friday or Saturday evenings. A wicker basket. Cockles, whelks, and sometimes prawns in small containers. He wasn't employed by the pub. He had an understanding with the landlord, a small fee or an arrangement that had been running long enough that nobody remembered starting it. He did a circuit, 6 or 8 pubs in an evening, each one expecting him at roughly the same time. In East London and Essex, he was a fixture of the Friday night pub. In northern coastal towns, a different man ran the same circuit. He disappeared in the late 1980s, mostly as pubs started handling their own food. A decision at one pub rippled to the next. The circuit died when too many landlords started keeping him outside. In every pub he entered, he was apparently greeted with the same question. "Have you got crabs?" Which was considered funnier each time. Everything left on this list is cold or sealed or under glass, except number 3. Number 3 burned the roof of your mouth every time, without fail. Scotch egg under the glass dome. Cold, room temperature, the breadcrumbs dry. The sausage meat a uniform pink. The white of the egg set hard. Nobody asked when it was made. You accepted the terms. This was not the Scotch egg that appears in gastropubs today. Warm, soft yolk, made that morning with seasoned meat from somewhere specific. This was a observation exercise, not a cooking one. The glass dome on the bar existed to keep things from the air, not to indicate freshness. If you ate one, it was because the alternative was nothing. It was better than nothing. Sometimes considerably better. But the terms were clear from the moment you pointed at it. The dome dates it. The dome and the fact that you had to ask someone to lift it. Number 4. Pork pie with piccalilli under the dome. Same glass dome, same bar, next to the Scotch egg, or in place of it, depending on the pub. A Melton Mowbray or something less specific. Cold. the pastry holding its shape at room temperature in a way that required no refrigeration and offered no guarantees. Beside it, piccalilli in a small dish, or a custard, or nothing at all. The tradition of serving cold pork pie at the bar predates the 1970s considerably. What ended it was not a decision, but a drift. The microwave arrived, the kitchen arrived, the licensing laws changed, and suddenly the glass dome on the bar was the old way of doing things. The people who remember it tend to remember the piccalilli more than the pie. The sharpness of it, the slight heat, the contrast with cold pastry and fat. If this list bringing back a particular pub, a specific bar, a specific smell, a specific landlord, hit like. That one tag is what tells YouTube this film is worth putting in front of someone who was there. It takes 3 seconds and it matters considerably more than it looks like it does. Number 3. The Breville Toasty. The landlady made them. Behind the bar, a domestic Breville sandwich maker plugged into the wall, and from the mid-1970s onwards, that machine changed what a wet-led pub could offer. Ham and cheese and tomato. The bread sealed around the edges by the hot plates, creating a pocket of filling that stayed molten longer than you expected. You were handed it wrapped in a paper napkin with a warning you already knew was coming and ignored. The first bite always burned the roof of your mouth. This was the first hot food many pubs had ever served. Not a kitchen, not a menu, not a chef. A woman behind the bar with a domestic appliance making sandwiches to order. The sealed edge, the steam, the paper napkin. The specific toasty made on a Breville in a pub has not survived the gastropub kitchen. Nothing that came after it is quite the same thing. Number 2. Pork scratchings in the foil bag. They were in a box behind the bar. You did not pick them up yourself. You told the barman what you wanted and he reached back and found you a bag. The bags were small, foil, sometimes warm from being near the optics. Inside, pieces of fried pigskin in varying sizes, some with bristle still on them. The crunch was unpredictable. Some pieces were hard enough to crack a filling, others softer, the texture giving way before you expected it. You finished the bag in 4 minutes. You considered another one. Pork scratchings exist today in artisanal versions, in seasoned formats, in resealable bags at twice the price. The ones in the box behind the bar in the 1970s, anonymous, warm, unpredictable, occasionally dangerous, were a different category. The form is still there. The thing itself is not. One left. It's in a jar. If you're not subscribed, do it now. We're here every week. Number 1 has been on British bar counters since before any of the other things on this list existed. It requires nothing. A jar, some vinegar, and time. Number 1. The pickled egg. The jar sat on the bar. The liquid was brown and slightly cloudy. The eggs were white inside, or sometimes pink from the beetroot brine. You didn't ask how long they'd been in there. Nobody did. The barmaid used tongs to fish one out. You ate it in 2 or 3 bites. The vinegar came first. A pub with a pickled egg jar on the bar is now unusual enough to be remarked upon. In the 1970s, it was the most ordinary thing in the room. 15 things from the bar, the shelf, the glass dome, and the jar. Some are still there. Most aren't, or not in the way they were. Which one was on the bar in your local, and what would we have missed off this list? Tell us in the comments. We read every single one. Subscribe and hit the bell. There's a new film every week. Go and watch the next one.